Hey, this is Lyndsey Parker here for LPtv at Licorice Pizza with DJ Royalty.
What up, girl? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I got my necklace on. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's lots to talk about. Thank you for coming here. I know you're super into vinyl here at the store.
Absolutely.
You do an event called The Art of Vinyl.
Yeah.
We are surrounded by vinyl, so we are in our element.
It's like a toy store for me.
Yeah, you like, we'll get into it, but you kind of got your start with crate digging and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was something that my pops had throughout the house amongst instruments, and I started off on drums first, and that obviously involved, and crate digging became a part of my creativity.
So for people watching this who maybe don't know your resume, why don't you give, it would probably take a long time for you to read off your whole Wikipedia page, but you're part of the Avila brothers.
Yes. Shout out to my broski. I think he's in Houston right now working with Baby Bash, man. What's up, broski?
And the reason for the necklace, the inside joke, is that you've worked with Usher a lot,
for sure,
including the Super Bowl show last year, which we'll talk about. But why don't you say, you do a lot of things.
Yeah. I think it all starts from my core love for music and a musician that later on led to songwriting and producing, but it really started in the house. My pops was a keyboard player, so they were always rehearsing at the crib, and we couldn't get no sleep because the garage was next to the bedroom. So it was like, hey, if you're gonna be up, come in here and listen. And I would just naturally go sit by the drummer. I was always fueled by groove and the sound of a drum and beat and rhythm, and so that's kind of where this infectious thing started.
And this was all in Southern California. You're Southern California, so just like me.
Yeah, from the Inland Empire. Shout out to Rialto, Fontana, Riverside, all of them. That's my home. Yeah, I grew up in Rialto.
So what was your first big break? You said you started as a drummer, but then you became a DJ, producer, mixer, I would say my first big break is I actually at the time was I did a deep dive into breakdancing that spawned off into me, going down the rhyming route. Yeah. Wait, you did breakdancing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
oh my God, that's so cool.
When you grow up in the hood, that's what's around. You got breakdancers, you got everybody just outside, you know what I'm saying? And that was the thing. So started there, and that eventually, fell into, really understanding hip hop, learning how to rhyme. And my first break was my brother produced my demo, and I got signed with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and I was 13.
And, my God, talk about royalty. That is so, so cool.
Yeah.
13. You're kind of similar, I guess, to sort of Usher. He started that young as well.
We started young. My brother got his deal with RCA at 12 years old. And that's really what catapulted and championed the direction that I was going. And, he produced my demo and he played my tape for Jimmy Jam, and they were like, yo, that's Drive Off the Road music. And I got signed.
Was this after they'd had their success with Janet? Obviously, they'd had
this was like 91, 92. So this was right when they were, working on Janet's album. They were doing New Edition. I mean, it was royalty being over there. It was like, wow, this is how records are made.
But you ended up sort of apprenticing, you and your brother, like working for them, or it wasn't just that you signed to them. You actually were kind of their right hand.
We were in-house. I mean, we were on the production side, and, that was the start of what would become, early 2000s, what we were doing on all the records we were producing.
Wow. So what did you learn from, they're such legends. They're such pioneers. And Jimmy Jam, obviously, he does all the stuff with the Recording Academy. He's like the coolest person in the world. Like, you talked about being like a kid in the candy shop here. You must have felt that way in their studio too.
We did. That's the thing. It's like when you think you understand how to make records, and then you get to a place like Flight Time, and it's like, oh, this is how records are made. Very high level. And Terry was always about. I talk about it all the time. He was always about the dynamics of a song, right? A song should never end the same way it started. That's called dynamics. And so, one rule of thumb in Flight Time was, you didn't loop everything. You had to play it from top to bottom. So if that was keys, you played from top to bottom. There's no taking your 8 bars, loop. Like, they believed in performance and what that meant to the song. And so that was new school for us. But we had practiced so much that, I'm not going to say it was easy, but that was already in our workings,
Who did other artists you worked with during your Flight Time time?
A lot of them. Mint Condition, Sounds of Blackness, it was everybody that was in house at that time that was around. It was like pick of the litter.
So cool. So you started as a break dancer.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do competitions?
No, I did.
America's
now we battled
Best Dance Crew, which was my favorite show.
So our version of that was like, who's the next crew in the city? We're either going to battle at a house party or at school. That was just the arena at that time.
So you didn't do like the actual like America's Next Best Dance Crew? Remember that show? That was my favorite show.
I do. We did it. We just kind of kept it all within, the Inland Empire, and it was like whoever wanted it could get it. Let's go.
What was the name of your crew?
We had our crew was called Naughty Kids, and then you had another crew called Unity, and so that was and Perspective. So that was like. Those were the squads.
And then you were a rapper as well.
Yeah.
So you were a performer first and a drummer.
Yes.
So why or how did you sort of make a transition to being more a behind the scenes guy?
So out of high school, I got a call to play on a couple of demos for artists at the time, which ended up being Macy Gray. And that happened through a good friend of ours, D-Style, who was engineering my project. And D would hit me up because D used to love, I had this little 3-piece hip hop kit. It was old, raggedy. It was literally my first drum set. And I've kept it still to this day. And he was like, hey man, I need you to come play on some demos. Bring that hip hop kit. And I would come in and play these songs down. And at the time nobody knew of her, but it was Macy Gray. And then that transpired into Macy saying I want you to come on the road with me. And so I went on the road with her. And where it really started was with my boy Phys Ed, and every city we'd go to a record store and I grab vinyl and bring it back to my hotel room. And I had my MPC 3000 with me. And so night after night, I'd be in my room after the show, just cranking out beats.
Do people, we're sort of skipping ahead, but you do these events called the Art of Vinyl here. It's like mixers for DJs and producers and stuff. Naive question, because I'm not that. Like, do people still use vinyl, like the kind of stuff, the sampling you do, talk about crate digging stuff, or has that kind of come back?
So here's what's interesting is that, there's a lot of, creatives in this newer generation where they're trying to, emulate what the 90s was and even hip hop. And a lot of the 90s was fueled off of analog and crate digging. And so in order to capture the essence of that, you got to go to the source, and the source is the vinyl. The source is trying to find that right break in a record. And yes, it has seen a resurgence. And I think that's why when you look at how folks are even discovering vinyl now at Walmart, it's like, there's something to be said about the experience of looking at photos and reading liner notes and the experience of grabbing a vinyl and putting it on a turntable.
Random aside, how do you feel about cassettes? Because I completely understand. I understand the vinyl resurgence. The cassettes one, I'm kind of puzzled by.
But you got to think, music needs a new experience because obviously the streaming has taken away those elements, right? The personal aspect of it. And I think kids are now able to grab on these things that they look cool. A Walkman in today looks cool. Like, what is that? And it's, what I'm saying? We're fueled by dope gadgets, right? So when they feel like they're discovering something new, you get a resurgence of vinyl, you get a resurgence of cassettes. And I think CDs are on their way too.
I agree.
What
about 8-tracks?
No.
They do look cool though.
They do look cool.
But I get it.
But I think too, like, we got to remember what music, the experience of music is about. It's about feeling a way when you pick up a piece, when you listen to something, when you get excited about something that's music. And I think the only way to do that is to actually have a physical product that you can touch. And as creatives, it's the only way we can count our money now.
It's true.
Right? So I love the idea of physical product. It should have never left.
First album you ever owned or bought?
Man, I never bought one album. I always bought a slew of albums. One of my most favorite albums is probably that I've bought is Indistinctive Travels by Tribe Called Quest. Because I remember having it on a cassette. And so being able to have that album, it was a memorable moment for me.
Very cool. So then, as I've mentioned, you obviously have worked a lot with Usher.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? Because, that's a more than 20-year relationship at this point.
For sure. That's an interesting conversation. We were working at a place called The Village in Santa Monica, Village
Famously.
Studios. Yep. Shout out to Jeff Greenberg, my bro. And we were just in there cooking and, Usher came up on the schedule and T was like, hey, start preparing, the playlist because he's coming up and if there's things you could play him. And so I was like, word, okay, let me go through my arsenal. Let me create on some stuff and see what I can couldn't, muster up. And interesting story. The first record we did for Ush on Confessions with a song called Truth Hurts. Truth Hurts was a track that I had did for a group I went to high school with 3 years prior. And my brother had always said from the day I created it was, yo, man, that's a joint I could hear Usher on 3 years prior to us meeting him. And so, when we met him at the Village, it was like, man, play that one. And so I played that one. And then, the way we have our setup is, we always have a mic live in the studio. So if anybody wants to shoot melodies out, we can capture it all and put that joint on. And it was like, Truth Hurts, Truth. And that was the first record that we worked on with him. And then, he ended up coming back to town, and it's like, we did 4 more. So.
You said this was just 3 years out of high school? Maybe even less than that?
Yeah, so it was,
you were young.
Yeah, it was young, but it was more than anything was the fact that I had made that for a group that I went to high school with, right? Which was 3 years prior. And my brother spoke it into existence because that became the first track we worked on with Ush.
So cool. So you were mentioning, actually before the cameras rolling, you were talking about that record. It was all, you worked with samples or crate digging that would be impossible to even track down now, like obscure stuff.
And that's the thing, like when I think about the majority of the records for Confessions, all of it was me crate digging, like Seduction. I was crate digging, trying to find some sexy. That's what it's made for. It's like, okay, how can I create something that moves a certain way, that feels great, but feels like hip hop, and that was, that's always been my creative palette with my 3000 and crate digging, and also crate digging in a way where you're chopping things up so well, so crafty, detuning things that, you may never find those records.
Not without getting too into legalese or the weeds, like, but how, when it comes to legal stuff, how does that work? Because we've heard, stories about like, I think Biz Markie had a lot of issues. That was a big thing. I think probably the Beastie Boys with Palm Boustique kept, which was so sample-delic. Like, how do you navigate that as that kind of legal landscape changes?
I think, in all fairness, when you do bars, when you do loops of samples, like a bar or 2 bars, like you got to understand that you are now co-writing with the person that created that, right? I've never been big on using like bar measures of samples. Like I'll take a sound, chop it, splice it, detune it, resample it, freak it, so it becomes my own. And I think you have to be aware of those parameters. Like, when you're sampling hits that were big records in the 70s, like they're coming for you, So there's a way to do it. You got to be honorable to what you're doing with whose work and how you're initiating that conversation. Like, hey man, I love for us to be co-writers on this because you brought something that sparked my something, and here was what we have together. You know what I mean?
Have you been on the opposite side of that equation where someone has sampled or interpolated something you've done?
Yeah, going through it now. But it's because I understand the art. It's all how you do it. And one of the issues I have, like if you use like a whole song that we've done and you don't bother to reach out and say, hey, we want to let you know we use this, can we get clearance and build a relationship, and you disregard all the rules, and then you're up for the taking. There's a respect to it. It's music, it's creativity, but it's also when you're using somebody's other idea and musical component, you got to do your due diligence and do the right thing.
I definitely want to ask you about the Super Bowl. Last year's Super Bowl was epic. There was roller skating involved. It's kind of I guess you can call it, it was a bit of a comeback for Usher. He hadn't had like that kind of international platform in a while.
Yeah.
He hadn't released music in a while. Tell me about your involvement in that. I can't even imagine all the moving parts to do something of that scale and scope.
I'll tell you this, I don't want to ever do it again. That all spawned from, I joined Usher's band in 2009, became a part of the Funk Rock Orchestra with a group of incredible gentlemen, my brothers, that had been with Usher quite some time. And, me joining the band, I think it was a great opportunity for me. I think being able to merge what I've done in the studio on the recording side for him, and now I'm in this live setting. And, there's something to be said about creating music and then seeing how the world embraces it. When they're singing your songs, when you see that you've tapped something, by all races and all walks of life. I mean, that means something. And being able to travel the road with him for almost 15 to 16 years, it was amazing. And it allowed me to continue, to create for him. I mean, we had the next album, Raymond versus Raymond. And, at the time we were getting ready to do a tour, which was his OMG tour. And there's a track on there that me and my brother did, which was Monstar. And that Monstar track, we always envisioned being the opening song for the arena. And so to see that actually become the opening song for the arena was like, yo, the power of creativity, And so all of that led up to, just the refinery of mine and Usher's relationship as brothers and understanding each other's gears and always trying to push to get the best. And so, we went into Vegas in 2020 out of the pandemic and produced his show for the residency at Caesar's Palace, along with Lil Jon, our bro, and Chronic. And, I think that really set the tone for what doors we're going to open up for, the next residency, which was Park MGM, and then what became Super Bowl. It's like
Super Bowl was in Vegas the year he
Super
played,
Bowl
right?
was in Vegas. And so doing all the groundwork and getting it to a point where you had to call Usher for the Super Bowl. We had lit Vegas on fire. And coming out of the pandemic, right? Is this going to work? Are they going to shut it down? People are wearing masks. And so having all of that go on and still being able to execute a show at a high level definitely set the stage for the Super Bowl call.
Were you there at the Super Bowl? Were you there at the halftime, physically there?
We performed.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Dumb question. Yeah. So what was it like? Because also, for the record, I don't think it's a problem if artists lip sync at these things, because for people, I'm not saying he did. I don't know if he did. Some people do, and people give him crap for it. And I'm like, the moving parts for this, for it to be perfect in, what is it, like 15, 17, 18 minutes? Like, there's no room for error.
There's no room for
sounds bad.
And it's great you say that, because that's one of the things I always touch on with Super Bowl. One thing I will tell you with Ush, he's 9 times out of 9, he's never going to lip sync. That is his respect for the craft, which is why he conditions himself the way he does.
And we all know he can sing.
That's
a fact.
Dance, and stay in key. So he's mastered that thing. I think that's one of the aspects of how much of a student he is for what he loves. So, starting Super Bowl months prior, just in preparation, from the music side, and also his side, like understanding the process he put his body through to make sure he can execute at a high level. And I'll tell you, there was no room for error. We had curated things so intensely that we thought about all the errors that could possibly happen. A cable getting pulled, a wheel as they roll the stage out not working right. And so, we thought about all the things, but I think most importantly, the mindset of how we were going to create a show that kicked ass. And that mindset was like, period. Prince, Michael Jackson, where do we want to fall? We want to fall in between. And so that was the goal from day one, all the way to the point where we set up images of Mike and Prince in the studio as we were crafting this experience, just for the blessing and inspiration, because we didn't want to go in there and it be a good show. We wanted to go in there and be like, hands down, one of the greatest Super Bowl shows we've seen, which is why you saw him pull out various aspects in his performance, the skating, the wow factor, but him being live on that mic and singing his heart out.
So he was live.
All the way live.
And again, I wouldn't blame him if he wasn't live or if he had tracks, because, there are some that sing live, but some that don't. And I understand, when the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who we all know are great players, did it with Bruno, they didn't have their instruments plugged in because they needed to get in and off the field in 30 seconds. But so he did it live.
He did it all the way live.
Wow, that was a risk.
It was a huge risk. And I think, in all honesty, how our camp moves, we wouldn't have accepted anything less than that. And I know Ush wouldn't have either. And that's why, again, he put in the work to execute that at that level, understanding that there could be a potential mic mishap. He's dealing with wardrobe changes, but that's how committed he was to letting the world let it be known out here, I am still one of the best entertainers that we have left.
And you were playing live too.
We were playing live,
That must have been nerve-wracking.
It was, in a sense, because to your point, one mishap in the Super Bowl, that mishap lives on forever.
Especially since at that time, I don't know if Kendrick beat the record, but at that time it was the most watched Super Bowl halftime ever.
The most watched
Kendrick
Super Bowl.
might have beat it.
Yeah, he did, in all fairness. But, you know, I don't, you know, it's hard to say.
But like tens of millions of people watch this thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that's got to be. It's got to be daunting.
At the time, the story was the most viewed. I forget what it was. The most viewed show since the moon landing. Like that was the title that was running for our show. So, you know, that's something to wake up that Monday morning and be proud of. I'll never forget. After Super Bowl, I got a text from Usher and was like, "Yo, we're trending. We shattered the record." So, you know, I think that's the result you get when you plug into the time, the effort, the sacrifice to bring this to life. And that's what he did.
I've heard a rumor that this very live recording might be released commercially in some way on vinyl or on record.
It's possible. I mean, I'd love to see that happen. You know, but I think as we start to understand even more right now in music is that it's all about the experience, because just to take an album, put it out, promote a single, that day is gone. So how do we create events around our product? And I think that could definitely be an event.
Be very cool. So you've worked, I mentioned Janet a minute ago because you worked with Jam and Lewis, and also you worked with her on Damita Joe, right?
Correct, yeah.
So since we're talking the Super Bowl, I just got to ask you, wasn't that the album she put out that got completely overshadowed by the absolute BS?
That's a great question.
The absolute BS of that Super Bowl. That record came out like a month later, maybe less. And no one was paying attention to that record, which I think was a really great record. And I'm just curious about your feelings about that.
Here's what's
about that whole project.
Here's what's interesting. Confessions dropped a week prior to that. So we were working on both albums simultaneously. And that album, Damita Joe, is an incredible album. And when that happened, it was like, oh, and at that time, we had the number 1 and 2 record in the album. We had Confessions and Damita Joe. So when that happened, it took all the momentum away on that record. And, you know, it's disheartening when I think about it, because we had so much good energy into the music on that record, you know, and I mean, I still listen to that album still to this day. You know, I'll actually probably be spinning a couple records from that album tomorrow, you know. But yeah, that Super Bowl performance definitely like took the air out of the balloon for sure.
Yeah, I'll get heated if I talk about too much. I mean, I think at this point, like, there's been some justice for Janet at this point, but that was such BS. What was it like working with her?
You know, Janet is amazing. Obviously, you know, anything Jackson family related is always just, you're always in awe and honor. And I will say this, that woman's, I don't know what perfume it is, probably the most amazing smell I've ever gotten from a human being, you know. And she's, you know, she's sweet. She's, you know, she's very, she's just very cool, you know. She just has a thing about her. And I think that's what we love just from a personal aspect about her is although she's Janet, she's just always in the studio. She was always just cool and chill, you know?
You never spoke to her about what happened at the Super Bowl or how I mean, she's always had such class about it. She never really
and you know,
anyone.
She really didn't take it serious.
Good.
You know, she just kept it moving. And, you know, I think that's the beauty of undeniable talent. You know, you can do whatever you can, but, you know, I mean, she's still packing the house.
Yeah, she plays the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah.
So I'm going to lightning round because, you know, like I said, your resume is very long.
Yeah.
But if you want to bring up any fun stories about working with any of these people, Chaka Khan. Speaking of royalty.
Yeah. That was amazing. Did a record that actually won a Grammy, which was, I think, Best Duo Collaboration. That was a record we did called Disrespectful with her and Mary J. Blige. And, you know, again, that was a record that came from the MPC 2000 crate digging and trying to give her something explosive. And, you know, and I think too, like, what I love most about the music we've been able to create, a lot of it has been inspired by my love for vinyl and just doing this, like, oh, who's that? You know, let me look at the artwork and see who played what, you know? So I think those are great things to look at, especially when it comes to just my love and my appetite for vinyl.
Gwen Stefani, you worked with her on the first solo record.
Yeah. Gwen Stefani, Harajuku. We did a song called Harajuku Girls.
Yeah.
And I remember her coming to the studio. We were all in the control room, and she was really fueled by this fashion experience she had in Japan. And she was like, how can we, and you got Harajuku Girl, which ended up becoming a line for Target. And so, those experiences are just, you can't really, capsulate the feeling that something like that gives you. Cause it's so just like, when you create, you pull from the universe, and how it unfolds is how it unfolds.
You work with so many dynamite women. You mentioned Mary J. Blige. You work with Missy Elliott. Absolute queen.
Yeah.
What did you work with her on?
We did a record called For My Man that featured Fantasia.
Oh, I love Fantasia.
Yeah. And
she's so great. She's one of my favorite American Idol winners.
Yeah. So, it's Missy, man. It's like one of the most creatives, female rhymer, MC that we've had in our era of just music. And, when you get that opportunity and you have a joint that she wants to rock on, it's like, you're like a kid in a candy store, and again, that was another record that was crate digging in the MPC, so I'm glad that, it resonated with her in a way where she wanted to jump on it and then brought in Fantasia, and it turned out to be a great song.
And you've worked with Mariah Carey.
Yeah.
Oh man, like I'm just gonna rattle off names.
Yeah.
You just tell me. I mean, she's also a queen. All these are queens.
Yeah,
absolute queens.
And I think too, like,
Aretha. You've worked with Aretha. I mean, come on.
Aretha, Anthony Hamilton. We did a song for Anthony Hamilton called "Point of It All," which just caught a new wave, and they're doing dances to it on TikTok. It's you never know how these things are going to unfold. Obviously, you want a song to be successful in a way where, not so much it's a number one record, but just enough to impact someone's life. That's why we make music. And so when you see those things become what they've become, it's like, I'm glad that our frequency resonated with people.
And you've worked with Earth, Wind, and Fire, who I just saw at the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah.
And they just were brought up with Sabrina Carpenter at Lollapalooza. So a whole new audience. And fun fact, my birthday is the 21st night of September.
Yeah.
So I always have
always
have a soft spot for them.
Do you remember?
There you go.
I'm glad you brought up Earth, Wind, and Fire, because out of everyone that we've worked with, and I can say this for my brother too, out of everyone we worked with, Earth, Wind, and Fire was our true, like, geek out moment, where those are the records my dad played in the house, right? And so fast forward later on in life, here we are writing a song for them and working with them. Verdine on bass, Maurice White at the time, who was alive, writing with us in a room. And I think what makes that the most memorable out of all of that was being able to say, Maurice, is there any way you can just say hi to my dad on the phone? And Maurice got on the phone, and him and my dad talked for like an hour and a half.
That's right? So cool.
Yeah. So it's like, hey man, listen, everything has been great, but when you get those moments and you're now sitting with your father's musical heroes, it's like, to me, that trumps everything. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is there anyone that you geek hard for that is on your wish list of someone to work with that you haven't yet?
Prince was definitely one of those for both me and my brother, somebody that we can maybe one day write a song with. I mean, he used to pop in and hang out with us in Minneapolis at the studio.
Oh, wow.
Even when we were out here, he'd come through. That was always somebody, that I think would have been such an incredible experience. Outside of that, I mean, for me, I'm going to say, I would have loved to work with Dilla. I would have loved to work with Tribe Called Quest. Cause that's my musical DNA. That's what I grew up on. And
let's put it out there. Someone that, you could realistically maybe
if I could do an EP for Dilla, Farside, like I'm ready to go, that would be a dream come true for me.
Well, I feel like that's pretty within reach. I mean, you've worked with so many, as I've mentioned, so many amazing people that it seems like that's pretty realistic goal right there. Yeah. So before I let you go, we're here at Licorice Pizza. As I mentioned, you do these, you're super into vinyl. You geek hard on vinyl. Tell me about they're monthly events you do here.
Yes,
What do they entail if someone wants to come by?
We do every second Thursday at Licorice Pizza, and it's called The Art of Vinyl. And the whole goal with us bringing this together is just getting back to what feels good about just music in general, right? The community of music lovers, people that love to look at incredible artwork, read liner notes, come chill, get a drink, have a good taco.
Yeah, there's tacos, guys.
Yeah, tacos. Now
now you're coming.
That's the draw.
It's one of many.
Yeah, and the environment is fueled by what you're hearing coming from two lacquers, vinyl, and so I think it's one of those things that we want to cultivate into just being your go-to location at a time of month where you just want to come breathe, meet some new folks, network, get a great discount on some of the vinyl during those times, which is 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And it's really about community of music lovers and just a vibe. We don't, music doesn't have enough of that happening, right? And we really need that. We need that back.
I fully agree. So thank you for bringing that spirit here to Licorice Pizza. And thank you for this wonderful conversation. I'm going to ask you one last question, put you on the spot.
Yeah.
What was the very last record you bought? Maybe you bought it 5 minutes ago before this interview started. What was the last vinyl record you bought?
What was the last record I bought? My collection is so sick. So
how many records do you own, by the way?
Oh, man, I have so many.
Yeah, I bet.
I can't, it might have been a 45 that I got. But man, I have gotten so many of them I can't even remember, and I haven't really had a need to buy anything. I think there's one album I want to get that's a hard to find album, and that album is a Special Ed album, the rapper Special Ed. So, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty stocked. I'm pretty stocked. Well, I will say this: the last actual crate I bought was from Licorice Pizza.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you
Shout
go.
out to Carey too, my man who's helped pull all this together, man. Love you, bro. Thank you.
We love you. We love you. Yeah. We love you here. We love the art of vinyl. Thank you so much for this conversation. If you feel like picking up something, let me know. But I'll see you at the Art of Vinyl. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah. Make sure you come out 7 p.m.
Not
to 9 p.m. Yeah, not a.m. Music people don't. Yeah, we don't move that early. But come hang out with us. We got music, tacos, cool drink, good vibe, good energy, discounts on vinyl. It's where you should be on a Thursday night.
What more you need in life?
Yeah. Licorice Pizza, we out.